Marcus Whitfield was known throughout the city not only for his immense fortune but also for his generous heart. At 35, he had built a technology empire from nothing, but unlike many of his wealthy peers, he never forgot where he came from. His compassion was genuine, his charity work extensive, and his belief in human goodness unwavering. That belief would be tested on a rainy Thursday evening in downtown Seattle. Marcus was driving his Tesla through the congested streets when the traffic light ahead turned red. As he came to a stop, rapid tapping sounds echoed from his driver's side window. He turned to see a homeless man, thin as a rail, clothes torn and dirty, extending a trembling hand in a silent plea for help. Without hesitation, Marcus lowered his window and pulled $100 bill from his wallet, handing it to the man with a warm smile. "Thank you, sir," the homeless man said, his eyes lighting up with genuine gratitude. "You just saved my day. I can buy food for my kids now." Marcus nodded kindly, and noticing the light had changed to green, accelerated smoothly back into traffic. But in the passenger seat, his girlfriend Victoria sat with an expression of pure disgust. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked, glancing at her before returning his attention to the road. Victoria didn't hide her displeasure. "This habit of yours, helping everyone, giving money to these people, when are you going to understand that whoever's on the street chose to be there?" Marcus took a deep breath and replied firmly, "I don't believe anyone chooses to live on the street, Vic." But Victoria wasn't finished. "You know what I mean, Marcus. These people are on the street because they made wrong choices. They're consequences of their own actions. You need to stop this habit of handing out money to anyone who appears." She paused, then continued with the same harsh tone. "And besides, do you really think that homeless man is going to buy food? Please, he's going to buy drugs or alcohol." "You know what else?" Victoria added, warming to her theme. "Do you know what the crime rates are like these days? What's the point of having bulletproof glass in the car if you're going to open the window to the first raggedy person who appears? I'm thinking about our safety. I'm waiting for someone to stick a gun through that window." Marcus maintained his calm but firm tone. "I disagree with you. There are criminals everywhere, including people wearing suits and ties. Just because someone lives on the street doesn't make them a criminal. Honesty has no social class. I honestly believe there are more decent people at the bottom than at the top." They continued arguing until Marcus parked in front of an upscale boutique where Victoria had ordered a new handbag. As she got out of the car, her eyes scanned the sidewalk and noticed something curious. Sitting on a piece of cardboard was a street child, probably around 10 years old. He wore simple, dirty clothes and a pair of sunglasses too big for his small face. But what caught Victoria's attention was the exact moment when he quickly bent down and picked up a coin that had fallen among the hurried feet of passers-by, pocketing it like he'd found a treasure. Victoria watched everything carefully, and something sparked inside her. A few minutes later, Victoria emerged from the boutique with her new handbag and returned to the car. As she sat down next to her boyfriend, she prevented him from starting the engine. "Wait, I want to do something," she said. Marcus raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Are you going to buy something else?" She shook her head. "No, I want to propose a bet." Marcus frowned, clearly intrigued. "What kind of bet?" Victoria crossed her arms and responded with a calculating look. "This thing of yours about wanting to help everyone, especially people you don't even know, bothers me. It's not that I'm against helping, but it's dangerous. Since you're so sure these homeless people are all honest, I want to propose a test." Victoria then pointed discreetly toward the end of the street. "See that street kid over there on the corner?" Marcus followed her direction and nodded. "Yes, I see him." She then explained her plan with the tone of someone who already knew the result. "Take your wallet, leave the documents out, of course, but put some money inside. Then walk quickly and drop it near the boy just to see what he does." Marcus gave a half smile, beginning to understand where she was going. "You want to test the boy's honesty? Is that it?" "Exactly," she said confidently. "If he returns the wallet, I'll give him a good amount myself. And what's more, I'll never bother you about this again. Now, if he disappears with the wallet, then you'll stop this story of giving money to strangers. You can keep helping institutions, but opening the car window to hand out money on the street, that's going to end." Silence hung in the air for a few seconds inside the luxury car until Marcus gently extended his hand toward his girlfriend and declared firmly, "Deal. But you'll be the one to see that honesty exists where you least expect it." Victoria raised an eyebrow ironically and shot back without hesitation. "I doubt that very much." Marcus looked toward the figure of the boy sitting in the corner of the sidewalk a few meters away, took his leather wallet, carefully opened it, and removed all his personal documents and credit cards. He left only about $1,000 in folded bills, closed the wallet again, and prepared to get out. Victoria, crossing her arms, made a venomous comment. "The kid's going to hit the jackpot. He's going to steal all your money. But at least after this, you'll learn that these people are all crooks." Marcus didn't respond, just got out of the car with firm steps, discreetly carrying the wallet in his hand. He walked toward the boy, who sat there with his face down and hand extended. Without stopping, without even making eye contact, the businessman approached and at the exact moment he passed beside the boy, let the wallet fall on purpose, as if bumping into something accidentally. From the passenger seat, Victoria watched everything with absolute attention. With her phone in hand, she started recording. The frame showed perfectly the boy sitting with the dark glasses on his face and legs crossed on the cardboard. She captured the moment when the boy noticed the object on the ground, reached out, and picked up the wallet with surprising agility. The boy shook his head in an agitated way, as if confused, and put his hand inside the wallet. Feeling the volume of the bills, he discreetly brought his hand to the pocket of his worn shorts and stored the contents without drawing attention. Meanwhile, Marcus walked slowly. With each step, hope consumed him. He believed. He turned slightly, looking discreetly over his shoulder. But the boy remained there motionless, still sitting in the same corner with his hand extended to pedestrians, as if nothing had happened. Marcus felt a strange weight in his chest. He turned around and returned to the car in silence. As soon as he got in, Victoria, with a smug smile, began, "I warned you that there's no honesty in these people. Look." She turned her phone screen toward him and pressed play. The images clearly showed the wallet falling, the boy picking it up, feeling inside it, noticing the money, and hiding everything in his pocket. He robbed you. He saw there was a lot of money and hid the wallet so nobody would look for it. These homeless people are worthless. That's why they're living this life. You can't even trust a child. Marcus kept his gaze fixed on the screen for a moment, then pushed the phone away and sighed deeply, visibly disappointed. "Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't trust people so much." Victoria held his hand and spoke softly. "You can trust me. I always want only the best for you, my love." Shortly after, she pulled the door handle, about to get out. Marcus found the gesture strange and questioned, "Where are you going?" "Without beating around the bush," she replied, "I'm going to get your wallet back. Obviously there was $1,000 in there. That kid doesn't deserve a single dime." But Marcus firmly held her hand, preventing her from leaving. "No, leave it with him. We're not going to cause trouble over that money. Besides, I took out my documents and credit cards. There's nothing important there. Let the boy have it. Let's go." Victoria frowned, clearly annoyed, but didn't insist. She leaned back in her seat, and in silence the couple drove back to their mansion, neither realizing that this simple test was about to change their lives forever. But before continuing with the main story, we need to go back in time to understand who this boy really was. Hours before that test, while the sun was still rising and the city was beginning to stir, Tommy, a small street dweller, was lying on cold cardboard on a concrete sidewalk. Still sleepy, he suddenly felt a jet of cold water hit his face. He struggled, startled, and sat up frightened. "What's happening?" the boy asked, still trying to understand what had woken him up. A man with a harsh expression, owner of a nearby store, responded brutally, "What's happening, you little wretch, is that if I find you sleeping in front of my store one more time, I'll throw you in the garbage truck. Get out of here, you disgusting brat." Tommy felt around the ground with his hands, desperate to find his few possessions. He groped until he found his threadbare backpack, dark glasses, and the old broomstick he used as a walking cane. While collecting everything, he said with a trembling voice, "Sorry, sir, it's just that I'm visually impaired. I didn't realize I was in front of the store." The man approached even closer, shouting, "Stop making excuses, kid, get out of here and don't come back." The boy, with trembling hands, put on his glasses, firmly held the broomstick, and began walking hurriedly, guided by sound, by footsteps, and by memories of the sidewalk. Tommy had never known what a home was, never had a surname. The street had always been his only address. He had taken his first breath practically in a dumpster, where he was left as a baby. A homeless woman found him that cold morning and was shocked. "My God, who abandons a baby like this?" she said at the time, taking the newborn in her arms. The woman soon understood the reason for the abandonment. The baby had a white, milky layer over his eyes, an opaque mass that completely covered his irises. There was no doubt. Tommy was blind. Even so, she raised him with what little she had, doing the impossible to feed him, protect him, warm him on the coldest nights. But life on the streets takes its toll, and the woman left too early. Tommy was left alone. Other homeless people tried to take him in for a while, but one by one they all disappeared. Hunger, disease, cold. The street doesn't forgive. But Tommy resisted, perhaps by strength, perhaps by miracle. At 10 years old, he was a survivor, a boy who saw the world only through shadows, but felt each rejection with cruel clarity. That day, sitting on the cardboard, little Tommy had managed only 3 10-cent coins. He knew that barely paid for half a stale, dry bread. Still, he kept his hand extended, seeing only shadows pass before him. "Please, just a coin. I'm very hungry," he murmured again with his voice choked. No one stopped. No one looked. The sun was already high and the sidewalk was scorching. Tommy felt exhausted. People went on with their lives, too busy to notice that invisible boy. With his eyes hidden behind old sunglasses, he began to think aloud. How long will it be like this? Will I die of hunger like my friends? My God, why can't I see? If I could see even a little, I could work, do something. A hot tear rolled down his face. Tommy took off his glasses to try to wipe it away, but it was useless. Others came, wetting his cheek. Why, my God, why does it have to be like this? I wanted so much to see. I wanted so much to have a home, to have a family, to have something to eat. He cried silently. The city continued ignoring his suffering. It was at that exact moment that a different sound made itself present. Not hurried footsteps, not horns, not distant voices. It was the sound of something falling to the ground near him, a heavier object muffled by the impact against the cement. Tommy turned his face slightly toward the direction of the noise. "What was that?" he said quietly, while feeling around the ground with his hands. His fingers touched a rectangular leather object. He held it carefully, trying to identify it. This is a wallet," he murmured in amazement. Carefully he opened the clasp and felt with his fingertips what was inside. It was folded papers. No, it wasn't just papers. It was money, lots of money. It's full of money. For an instant his mind was invaded by images. A hot plate of rice and beans, a new blanket, a pair of shoes, something to eat without begging. That money could be his chance to live well for a few weeks, to eat properly, to sleep without shivering from cold. But the thought lasted only a few seconds. Tommy closed the wallet, and without hesitation, put it in his pocket, but not to steal. "This money isn't mine. I need to find the owner. There must be some card, document or phone number in the wallet. I'll find the owner. I can't spend what isn't mine." Tommy remained sitting in the same corner of the sidewalk, with the wallet still carefully stored inside his worn shorts pocket. He thought carefully about each step he should take. He knew from experience that he couldn't simply get up and start asking who owned that object. He had been tricked before. He remembered the last time well. A man had claimed to own a bill Tommy had found, and then simply took it from his hand brutally, disappearing into the crowd. No, he wouldn't make that mistake again. "It's better to stay here quietly," he murmured to himself, keeping his hand extended as if nothing had happened. He would continue asking for alms, waiting for the real owner to appear, looking for the lost wallet. Hours passed slowly. The boy listened to everything carefully, trying to catch any different noise. Some voice looking for something lost, some keyword, but nothing. No one approached, No one talked about a wallet. Time slipped away like sand through fingers, and the sun gradually disappeared in the sky. It was late afternoon when Tommy decided to get up. He gathered his few belongings, the backpack light as wind, the broomstick that helped him walk, and his own thoughts. He walked with slow steps, smelling the good scent of food coming from nearby restaurants. His stomach reacted immediately, growling loudly. He stopped for a moment, put his hand in his pocket, and took out the coins he had received during the day. He counted them one by one, 30, 50, 80 cents. It wasn't even $1. Then his hand touched the other pocket. The wallet was still there, heavy, with real bills inside. It would be enough to take just one bill, just one, and he would have a plate of hot food, rice, beans, a piece of meat, a decent dinner. But that thought disappeared almost instantly. No, whoever lost this wallet must really need it. And I'm not a thief, he said firmly, quietly to himself. Without thinking twice, Tommy continued walking until he found a simple little stand on the sidewalk where an older man sold fruit that was past its prime. Spotted bananas, bruised apples, but still with some value. Tommy approached carefully and extended his hand with the coins. "Could this buy a banana and an apple, sir?" The vendor looked him up and down without showing sympathy, grabbed a dark banana and a soft apple, throwing them into the boy's hands without disguising his contempt. "Take it, now get out of here or you'll scare away other customers." Tommy held the fruit carefully and responded quietly, "Okay, I'm leaving." But even so, he smiled. A simple, almost imperceptible but sincere smile. "Well, at least I won't go to sleep hungry. Maybe tomorrow I'll have better luck," he murmured, walking away from the place. He walked a few meters until he found a hidden corner between two walls. There, alone, he sat and ate his fruit. It was enough to trick hunger, even if it didn't truly satisfy. Afterward, calmer, he took out the wallet again. Carefully, he opened the object with his small, calloused hands. But the more he searched, the more he found only money, bills, and more bills carefully folded. No ID, no CPF, no identification. But who walks around without any documents? He asked himself with a furrowed brow. It was then that his fingers touched something different, a thicker rectangular paper smooth on the edges. A card. Tommy carefully ran his fingers over it, trying to identify what it could be. What could this be? That piece of paper could be his only clue. He knew he couldn't read what was there. He thought, reflected, and then made a decision. He returned toward the fruit stand. He waited a bit, listening to the sound of voices and footsteps. When he noticed the movement had decreased, he approached cautiously. "You again, kid," the man grumbled. Tommy, with his heart racing, explained sincerely, "Sorry, I know you asked me to leave, but I needed a favor, and you're the only one I know around here." He extended his hand with the card between his fingers. "Can you see if there's anything written here? An address, name, phone number?" The man took the card without much patience and read with a furrowed forehead. "Well, it's a business card from a fancy company, Whitfield Technologies. Marcus Whitfield, CEO. There's an address here, yes. 5th Avenue, number 1200, downtown." He paused and looked at the boy curiously. "I've heard of this company. It's one of the most successful tech companies in the country. Where did you find this card?" Tommy didn't want to complicate things, just shook his head and said, It was lying on the ground. Thank you very much, sir." He thanked with a wave and left more hurriedly this time. While walking, the man's words echoed in his mind like a reminder he needed to memorize. Whitfield Technologies, Marcus Whitfield, 5th Avenue, number 1200. Maybe if I go to this address, I'll find the owner of the wallet, he wondered. And so Tommy decided. The next day he would try. It was, after all, quite close to downtown. It would be like a mission, and he didn't have many missions in life besides surviving. The next morning, Tommy woke with the first sounds of the day. Horns, bus engines, hurried footsteps. He stretched with difficulty, gathered his few things, and got up, guided by his old broomstick. "Well, today I'm going downtown to see if I can find the owner of this wallet. There's so much money inside, the person must need it," he said to himself, determined. He walked slowly, stopping to ask strangers for directions. Most of the time he was ignored, but occasionally he received quick, dry guidance. Even so, he continued firmly. After walking for a long time with slow steps, dodging obstacles guided only by shadows and sounds, he finally reached downtown. There he asked for 5th Avenue, number 1200. He insisted, walked a bit more, stumbled on irregular sidewalks, slipped on curbs, but after long minutes of effort, someone pointed to a tall, mirrored building with an immense sign at the entrance. "This is it. The owner of the wallet must work here," Tommy whispered out of breath, then took a deep breath and took a brave step into the building. As soon as he crossed the door, his dirty feet on the polished floor, his rags contrasting with the elegant environment, a security guard noticed his presence and his eyes widened in shock. "What is this filthy kid doing in here? He's going to scare away all the clients," he roared, already advancing. Tommy barely had time to react. He felt strong arms grabbing him roughly. "Get out of here now!" shouted the guard. "Wait, I just came to return something," the frightened boy tried to explain. The man grumbled with contempt. "What would a dirty beggar like you have to return? Get out of here or I'll have to use brute force." Tommy tried to resist, tried to explain himself, but the guard began dragging him outside. In the middle of the confusion, his glasses slipped and fell to the floor. "Wait, my glasses. I need my glasses." The guard looked at the object on the floor and without hesitation stepped on it with force, shattering the lenses. It was exactly at that moment that Marcus and Victoria arrived at the building's reception. Seeing the scene, Victoria stepped forward, annoyed by the shouting. "What's happening here?" The guard, trying to maintain his posture, responded, "This street kid wanted to invade the building, surely to steal something, but I'm already throwing him out, Miss Victoria." Victoria didn't think twice. "What are you waiting for? Get this kid out of here now." But before the man could act again, Tommy, with tears in his eyes, shouted desperately, "No, wait. I wasn't going to steal anything. I was just going to return something I found. I need my glasses." "I can't leave without my glasses." Tommy's voice echoed throughout the imposing lobby of the building. It was like a cry that pierced the uncomfortable silence of that elegant environment. Marcus, who until then had watched the scene paralyzed, awakened as if receiving a shock. "Let go of the boy," he ordered firmly. His deep voice reverberated in the environment. Victoria tried to intervene, surprised by her boyfriend's tone. "But honey," he turned to her with a serious look and responded without leaving room for discussion. "No more, Victoria. For God's sake, what can a boy like this do to anyone? We're in one of the most renowned companies in the country. We should know not to treat a person like this, regardless of who they are." The guard hesitated for a second but ended up releasing Tommy reluctantly. The boy, still scared, knelt on the floor and began desperately feeling around the smooth floor looking for something. His fingers soon found the remains of his shattered glasses right there. He held the pieces with trembling hands and eyes full of tears. The pain didn't come just from humiliation or fright, but from losing an item vital to his survival. "My glasses broke. What am I going to do now?" he murmured between sobs, hugging the shards as if trying to put them back together with his hands. Marcus couldn't bear to see that. He knelt beside the boy and spoke with genuine empathy. "I'll buy you new glasses." But before Tommy could even react, Victoria cut in. "Marcus, what had we agreed on?" He didn't hesitate for even a second. "It doesn't matter what we agreed on. His glasses broke inside our building and we're going to cover the damage." At that instant, Tommy raised his face for the first time, turning toward Marcus's voice. The millionaire, seeing him up close, became motionless. A chill ran through his body as he recognized the boy. It was him, the same boy from the day before. And now, face to face, he could clearly see the milky eyes without brightness, covered by the white fog of blindness. Victoria also recognized him. Her expression changed from astonishment to incredulity. "No, it can't be," she murmured almost voicelessly. It was then that Tommy put his hand in his pocket and took out a wallet. He extended it toward Marcus with humility, and his voice choked with emotion. "I didn't want to steal anything here, sir, I swear. I just wanted to return this wallet. Someone dropped it near me yesterday, but since I can barely see, only shadows, I didn't see who it was." I kept it with me, hoping someone would appear looking for it. Since no one appeared, I tried to find some document. I found a card with a name and this building's address. I asked a man to read it for me and came here to return it. This wallet belongs to someone here, and it's full of money. I thought the person might need it. I swear I'm not a thief and didn't want to cause any trouble. I just wanted to return it. Marcus stood paralyzed for a few seconds, looking at the wallet as if it was something sacred. He took it with trembling hands, and upon opening it, saw that the money was still there, each bill exactly as he had left it. Victoria also approached and looked inside the wallet. Her eyes widened. "It's not possible. I don't believe it," she murmured. Marcus looked into the boy's eyes, and with his voice choked with emotion said, "This wallet is mine. Thank you so much for finding it and keeping it for me." Then he took all the bills from inside the wallet and extended them to the boy with a grateful smile. "As a reward for your honesty." Tommy, however, took a step back and shook his head. "You don't need to. I just wanted a plate of food if you could give me that. And I really wanted to fix my glasses. I can't be in direct sunlight. Cheap glasses would be fine. If you could help me with that, I'd be eternally grateful." For a moment, silence took over the environment. It was then that unexpectedly Victoria took a step forward. Her expression, previously harsh, seemed to soften. She looked at the boy with new eyes, perhaps for the first time, truly seeing him. But as she studied Tommy's face more carefully, something made her freeze. The shape of his nose, the curve of his lips, the way he tilted his head when listening, it was all hauntingly familiar. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Look at him. Really look at him." Marcus frowned, confused by Victoria's sudden change in demeanor. "He looks like—" Victoria's voice broke. She took a shaky breath and continued, "He looks like your brother who died." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He staggered backward, his face draining of color as he stared at Tommy with new eyes. Marcus's younger brother David had died in a car accident 10 years ago when he was just 15. He had been Marcus's world, the only family he had left after their parents died in a fire when Marcus was 25. David had been born with a rare genetic condition that affected his vision, but it had been correctable with surgery. Unfortunately, they never got the chance. The accident happened 3 days before David's scheduled eye operation. Now, looking at Tommy, Marcus could see it. The same delicate bone structure, the same way of holding his head when concentrating, even the same unconscious gesture of reaching up to adjust glasses that weren't quite right. "No," Marcus whispered, his legs nearly giving out beneath him. "It's not possible." But Victoria wasn't done. "Marcus, when is David's birthday?" "March 15th, Marcus replied automatically, his mind reeling. Victoria turned to Tommy. "Sweetie, do you know when you were born?" Tommy shook his head sadly. "No one ever told me. The lady who found me said I looked like I was just a few days old when she found me in the dumpster. That was in March," she said. "Mid-March." Marcus felt the world spinning around him. "Victoria, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," she said, tears now streaming down her face, "that maybe David didn't die in that accident. Maybe someone found him injured, confused, and never knew where he belonged." The pieces began falling into place in Marcus's mind like a horrifying puzzle. The accident had been bad. David's car had gone off a bridge into a river. They'd found the wreckage, but by the time rescue crews arrived, there was no body. Everyone assumed he had drowned and been swept away by the current. But what if he had survived? What if he had been pulled from the water by someone, perhaps homeless people who lived under the bridge? What if his head injuries had caused amnesia, and his existing vision problems had worsened from the trauma? "Tommy," Marcus said, kneeling down to the boy's level, his voice shaking. "The lady who found you, do you remember what she looked like?" Tommy thought carefully. "She was old, had gray hair. She said she lived under a big bridge where cars went over the water. She died when I was about 5. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. The bridge where David's accident happened was exactly where homeless camps were known to exist. "We need to do a DNA test," Victoria said urgently. "We need to know for sure." Marcus nodded, unable to speak. If this boy was really David, his little brother who he'd mourned for 10 years, then everything he thought he knew about loss, about family, about second chances, would be turned upside down. That afternoon, Marcus, Victoria, and Tommy sat in the waiting room of a private clinic, having given DNA samples for an expedited test. Marcus couldn't stop staring at the boy, searching for more resemblances, more signs that this could truly be his lost brother. "Tommy," Marcus said gently, "do you remember anything from before you were 5? Anything at all?" Tommy concentrated hard, his brow furrowing with effort. "Sometimes I have dreams. There's a man older than me who's always kind. He has a deep voice like yours. And there's a place with lots of books and soft beds and food that smells really good." Marcus's breath caught. Their childhood home had been filled with books. He'd been an avid reader and had read to David every night. And their housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, had been famous for her cooking. "Anything else?" Victoria prompted gently. "Music," Tommy said suddenly. "There was always music, piano music. Someone played piano and I would sit next to them and listen." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. He had taught David to play piano. They'd spent countless hours at the bench together, David's small fingers struggling to reach the keys while Marcus guided him through simple melodies. "What songs do you remember?" Marcus whispered. Tommy hummed a simple melody, the first piece Marcus had ever taught David, Für Elise by Beethoven, simplified for small hands. "Oh my God," Victoria breathed. "Marcus, this has to be him." But Marcus needed to be sure. "Tommy, close your eyes. I'm going to play something and I want you to tell me if you recognize it." Marcus pulled out his phone and found a recording of himself playing piano from years ago, a piece he'd composed for David's 10th birthday. As the music began to play, Tommy's entire body went rigid. "I know this song," he whispered, his voice full of wonder and confusion. "I hear it in my dreams sometimes. It makes me feel safe." Marcus couldn't hold back anymore. He pulled Tommy into a fierce embrace, sobbing openly. "David, oh, David, I thought I'd lost you forever." Tommy seemed overwhelmed by the emotion, by the sudden flood of half-remembered feelings. Are you my family?" "I think I'm your brother," Marcus said, pulling back to look at Tommy's face. "I think your name is David Whitfield, and I've been looking for you for 10 years. While they waited for the DNA results, Marcus took Tommy, David, to his penthouse apartment. Victoria watched in amazement as Marcus transformed from the composed businessman she knew into a caring, protective older brother. He showed David around the apartment, describing everything in detail since David couldn't see it clearly. When they reached the music room, David's hands immediately went to the piano, his fingers finding the keys with muscle memory that 10 years and trauma couldn't erase. "Play something," Marcus encouraged. David's fingers moved hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence, picking out the melody Marcus had hummed to him so often as a child. It was shaky and imperfect, but unmistakably the lullaby Marcus had composed for him. "I remember this," David whispered. "You used to sing this to me when I had nightmares." Marcus sat beside him on the piano bench, just as they had as children. "Yes, and I promised you that as long as I was there, you'd always be safe." But you weren't there," David said, confusion and hurt in his voice. "Where were you? Why didn't you find me?" Marcus's heart broke. "I tried, David. I tried everything. I thought you were dead. I've blamed myself every day for 10 years. Victoria, watching from the doorway, felt her own heart changing. The coldness she'd cultivated, the prejudice she'd held against people like Tommy, was melting away as she watched the reunion of two brothers. "The accident," she said softly. "David, do you remember anything about an accident?" David's hands stilled on the keys. "Water," he said slowly. "I remember water and cold and everything hurting, and a lady's voice saying I was going to be okay. The woman who found you," Marcus realized. "She must have pulled you from the river. But why didn't she take you to a hospital?" Victoria asked. David shrugged sadly. "She couldn't afford hospitals. She said doctors cost money she didn't have. She took care of me the best she could, but my head hurt for a long time and I couldn't remember anything clearly. When she died, I was alone again." Marcus pulled his brother close. "You're not alone anymore." Never again. 2 days later, the call came. Marcus answered on the first ring, his hands shaking as he listened to the lab technician. "Mr. Whitfield, we have your results. The DNA test confirms a 99.97% probability that Tommy is your biological brother." Marcus dropped the phone, falling to his knees as 10 years of grief, guilt, and loss finally found resolution. David was alive. His little brother was alive. Victoria picked up the phone and thanked the technician, then knelt beside Marcus, holding him as he sobbed with relief and joy. When David heard the news, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a small voice, he asked, "Does this mean I can stay? I don't have to go back to the streets?" "Never," Marcus said fiercely. "You're home now. You're staying with me forever." But David looked worried. "I can't see very well. I can't work or help or do anything useful. I'll just be in the way. The doctors we consulted yesterday think your vision can be improved significantly with surgery," Victoria said gently. "And even if it couldn't, you're not in the way. Your family." Marcus stood up and took David's hands in his. "Do you remember what I used to tell you when you were scared?" David concentrated, then smiled slightly. "That blood makes family, but love makes it strong." "That's right. And I love you, David. I never stopped loving you, not for one single day in 10 years. In the weeks that followed, Marcus threw himself into giving David the life he should have had all along. The eye surgery was scheduled with the best specialist money could buy. David was enrolled in a private school that specialized in helping children with vision impairments catch up academically. Victoria surprised herself by how naturally she fell into the role of sister-in-law and caregiver. She found herself shopping for David's clothes, researching the best nutritionists to help him gain healthy weight, and even learning about vision therapy techniques. "You've changed," Marcus observed one evening as they watched David carefully eating dinner, still amazed by the luxury of unlimited food. "He changed me," Victoria admitted. "Watching him give back your wallet that first day, seeing how wrong I was about people's character, it made me realize how cold I'd become." Marcus nodded. "Finding him again has changed me too. All those years I spent building this company, accumulating wealth, I thought it would fill the hole David's loss left in my life. But nothing could do that except having him back. David's surgery was a complete success. While his vision wouldn't be perfect, he would be able to see enough to live independently, to read, to recognize faces clearly for the first time since the accident. When the bandages came off, the first face David saw clearly was Marcus's. "You look exactly like I remembered," David said, tears streaming down his face. Older, but the same kind eyes. Marcus hugged his brother tightly. "Welcome back to the world, David." A year later, David had caught up academically with his peers and was thriving in school. His vision, while not perfect, was good enough for him to live a normal life. He'd grown several inches and gained healthy weight, transforming from the skeletal street child into a healthy, happy teenager. Marcus had established a foundation in David's honor to help homeless children, particularly those with disabilities. Victoria ran the day-to-day operations, having discovered a passion for helping vulnerable children. "I keep thinking about that day," Victoria said one evening as they sat watching David practice piano. "What if I had gotten out of the car to take the wallet back from him? What if we'd driven away without knowing who he was?" Marcus shuddered at the thought. "But you didn't. Something stopped you. Maybe it was David's honesty that saved him," Victoria mused. "If he'd kept the wallet, if he'd acted like the stereotype I expected, we never would have looked twice at him. His character saved him," Marcus agreed. "The same character that helped him survive 10 years on the streets without becoming hard or cruel. Our parents raised him well in the short time they had with him, and somehow, even through everything he went through, that goodness stayed with him." David finished his practice piece and turned to them with a smile. "Did you like it? It's the song you wrote for my birthday, but I added some of my own notes to it." "It was beautiful," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "Everything about having you back is beautiful." That night, as Marcus tucked David into his bed, something he'd dreamed of being able to do again for 10 years, David asked the question that had been on his mind for weeks. "Marcus, do you think Mama and Papa know I came back to you?" Marcus smiled. thinking of their parents who had died when David was only 5. I think they've been watching over both of us all along, and I think they're very happy that we found each other again. David nodded sleepily. I'm happy too. For the first time since the lady who found me died, I'm really happy. As Marcus turned off the lights and closed David's bedroom door, he reflected on how one moment of testing human character had changed all their lives. Victoria's cruel bet had been meant to prove that poor people were inherently dishonest. Instead, it had revealed the extraordinary honesty of a child who had every reason to steal, but chose to do the right thing instead. And in doing so, it had brought a family back together. Epilogue. 5 years later, Marcus stood at the podium of the Whitfield Foundation's annual gala, looking out at a crowd of donors and supporters who had come together to help homeless children across the country. In the front row sat David, now 20, a junior in college studying social work, and Victoria, now his wife of 2 years. 5 years ago, Marcus began, I thought I knew what it meant to be successful. I had money, power, a growing company, but I was missing the most important thing, family. He gestured to David, who smiled back at him with eyes that could now see clearly, though he still wore glasses for reading. My brother David taught me that true success isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you give away. He taught me that honesty and character matter more than wealth or status. And he taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply trust in the goodness of people, even when the world tells you not to. Marcus paused, his voice becoming emotional. This foundation exists because a homeless, disabled child chose to return a wallet full of money to a stranger who had tested him. In doing so, he didn't just prove his own character. He changed the hearts of everyone who heard his story. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, as people mingled and shared stories about the foundation's impact, David approached his brother. Do you ever regret not knowing it was me that first day? David asked. Marcus smiled and put his arm around his brother's shoulders. Never. Because if I had known, I might have thought you returned the wallet because you recognized me. This way, I know you did it simply because it was the right thing to do. And that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. David grinned. Plus, if you'd known, Victoria never would have learned her lesson about judging people. They both looked over at Victoria, who was kneeling beside a young homeless girl, helping her fill out an application for the Foundation's housing program, her face full of compassion and patience. She's become an amazing person, David observed. She always was, Marcus replied. She just needed to remember how to see it in others. As the evening wound down and the last guest departed, Marcus, Victoria, and David stood together in the empty ballroom, looking at the banners displaying photos of all the children the Foundation had helped over the years. Ready to go home? Victoria asked, taking David's arm. Home. It was a word that had taken on new meaning for all of them. Not just a place, but a feeling of belonging, of being loved unconditionally, of being exactly where you were meant to be. Ready? David said. And together the three of them walked out into the night, a family reunited by honesty, transformed by love, and committed to making sure that no child would ever have to face the darkness alone. In the end, the test that Victoria had designed to prove human selfishness had instead revealed human goodness at its purest. And in saving David, that goodness had saved them all. The end.